Story time about one of the worst customers ever. I got a new job at a coffee shop downtown. It was my first day out of training and I would be taking orders and making drinks on my own. I was a little nervous, but excited and ready to be myself. Everything was going great until this woman came in. She came up to the counter and immediately noticed that I was new there. She said, "I'm a regular and come in almost every day. Write my order down and save it so I don't have to explain it to you again next time." At first I thought she was joking, so I smiled and laughed, but then I quickly realized that she wasn't kidding. She proceeded to order a very complicated drink, which I didn't mind. I was up for the challenge. I made her drink and handed it to her with a smile. Without even trying it, she said the color was off and requested I remake it. When I turned around to try again, she said, "Don't mess it up this time. It's not rocket science." I remade the drink, and this time she picked it up and looked at it, didn't try it, and complained that I put too much caramel in it and asked if I was trying to make her fat. I remade the drink a third time, doing everything she requested. This time she actually tried the drink and immediately spit it back into the cup. She then told me that I'm horrible at my job, called me incompetent and lazy, and of course asked to speak to my manager. It only got worse from here. Part 2 of the worst customer ever. After she requested to speak to the manager, I went to get the shift lead and explain the situation. He immediately knew what customer I was referring to. My manager went to speak to her as I remade her drink a fourth time. She demanded that the drink be free and that we also let her pick a food item on the house for wasting her time. When we refused, she went ballistic and started screaming that she would never come here again and that we lost a customer. She demanded that we get the owner of the store down here immediately and said that she wouldn't leave until the owner arrives. We told her that she would have to leave or we would call the cops. She continued screaming at us, took the drink without paying, and knocked over one of the displays on her way out. My manager said that this customer complained almost every day, told me I'm doing a good job, and thanked me for finally getting rid of a Karen. I couldn't believe my eyes when she came back a few days later. I was dreading having to take her order again. To my surprise, my manager confronted her about not paying the other day and knocking over our display. He then asked her to leave, but she went crazy again and refused to leave, and this time we did have to call the cops. Ultimately, she left before the police came and hasn't been back since.
Extremely toxic best friends.
This really upsets me that
Part 2 of how I hooked up with my story time about how I hooked up with my boyfriend's dad. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. My boyfriend's dad is an absolute DILF. He used to be a competitive bodybuilder and even did some modeling back in the day. Well, let's just say my boyfriend didn't turn out with the same looks. Don't get me wrong, my boyfriend is really sweet, but he's not the best looking guy. One of the reasons we started dating and I really liked him was because of how considerate and loving he was. We started off as friends and he would take me out to dinner, wine and dine me, eventually asked me to be his girlfriend and I said yes. We both come from wealthy families, and our families loved the idea of us being together. Exactly a year ago, we moved in together, and he got a new job that required him to travel a lot. Well, he asked his dad to come check on me. So his dad would come over, we would watch movies, and just hang out. But one night we decided to do some drinking. I got super tipsy, and so did he. One thing led to another, and we ended up, And after that, we did it over and over. Of course, my boyfriend's dad felt super guilty, and so did I. I mean, he was cheating on his wife with me, and I was cheating on his son with him. Part 2 of how I hooked up with my boyfriend's dad. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. After my boyfriend's dad and I had hooked up a couple of times, of course, he felt really guilty, and so did I. We decided to end things cordially and never tell anyone about it. Fast forward to when my boyfriend comes home from his work trip. I had to pretend like nothing happened, but it was really hard because at this point I definitely caught feelings for my boyfriend's dad. I became really distant from my boyfriend and he started noticing. He also asked me one day if his dad came over to check up on me, which I said yes. After that, things were just not the same between my boyfriend and I. He would always ask me why I never touched him or kissed him, and I would just say that I felt bad or that I had my period. A month later, my boyfriend goes on another work trip. My boyfriend even invited me to come on the work trip, but I said no. Instead, as soon as he left, I called his dad and told him to come over. I told him I just wanted to talk, but really, His dad came over, we talked for about an hour, and then it happened again. It's like we just couldn't help ourselves. That's when he told me that he was catching feelings for me and that maybe even wanted to get a divorce. Part 3.
Story time about the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to me. My fiance Jack and I moved into a new house and decided to have a housewarming party. He invited his coworkers and his family, and I invited my mom and some girlfriends. I was a little nervous about Jack's family being there because I always felt like they didn't like me. I know he really wanted them there and he was proud of our new place, so I didn't make a fuss about it. I decided I'd try to make a good impression during the party. To my surprise, his parents came up to me and began talking to me straight away. They were being very nice and pleasant. Things seemed to be going well. Jack had just installed new surround sound speakers throughout the house and wanted me to put on some music to show it off. I had my phone hooked up to the TV and was playing music videos for the party. I remember Jack's parents loved Queen, so I put on a few of their videos next, which they enjoyed. Everything was going great. That's when I remembered I forgot to post my video that day for my OnlyFans, which was my main source of income. I excused myself from the party and went to the bedroom to upload my newest video. Jack and I worked hard on this one and it was freaky, so I was expecting it to be a hit. I was editing it and adding the finishing touches on my phone when suddenly Jack rushed into the room frantic. He immediately yelled, "Turn it off!" I looked at him confused and he said, "Your phone's screen mirroring is hooked up to the TV and it's playing in the living room." My heart sank into my stomach and I was mortified. Part 2 of the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to me. I forgot my phone was connected via screen mirroring to the TV and surround sound speakers. The whole party just saw my newest OnlyFans video starring Jack and I, including his coworkers, my mom, and his parents who already didn't like me. I was so embarrassed I couldn't even speak. My face was as white as a ghost and I honestly wanted to be anywhere in the world but there. No one knew about my OnlyFans, but they sure did now. I knew Jack's parents for sure hated me at this point and I didn't even know what my mom was going to say. I locked myself in the bathroom to calm down. I knew I was going to have to go out and face the whole party that just saw me getting down in the bedroom. I went out there and pretended like nothing happened, and for the most part, so did the rest of the party. Except for Jack's parents. They didn't say anything, but they refused to make eye contact with me for the rest of the night and made it super awkward. My mom asked me in private what happened, and I explained to her what I did for extra income. She was actually supportive and impressed when I told her how much I typically make from it. Jack told me later that his coworkers commented on how good I looked, and one of them even asked for the link so he could subscribe, which I thought was really weird. All in all, it was the most embarrassing moment of my life. I try not to think about it, but it's definitely something I'll never.
I saw him walk past my classroom window, so I decided to go too. So I signed up for track and him and I started to talk a little bit. We exchanged numbers. And he was popular, I wasn't, so he didn't want to be seen with me. So after attendance, we would go to this graveyard right by the track and hook up. Well, the next day we had a meet at our school. So him and I went to the graveyard, hooked up, and that's when it started getting crazy, like for part 2.
Part 2. So on our way back from doing our thing, we had saw a group of kids that were behind this bush and they were chiefing. And we didn't think that they saw us because we were like, oh, they're just smoking, like whatever. So I go back to the meet, everything is good until the end of the meet. One of my best friends sends me this picture that I guess somebody posted on their story. And it was a picture of me and the kid hooking up. And next thing I know, my sister is blowing up my phone. And like I said, my sister and I didn't have a good bond, so I didn't give a shit what she had to say because I didn't know. So then I got home. And as soon as I walked into my room, my sister was literally waiting there for me. And she's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, him and I are in a relationship. And I'm like, bitch, what the fuck? And she was like, well, it's on the down low, but we're in a relationship. What the fuck is wrong with you? You're a whore. So then she decides to drive both of us over to his house. So we all decided to just stay away from each other. But then they got back together. So I just figured that wasn't fair and I'm still hooking up with him while they're together.
My boyfriend's girl best friend was always overly flirty with him and would stake her claim on him through passive-aggressive comments. I brought it up once in a cool-like manner and he just replied that she's like that with everyone. I let it slide because I didn't want to come off as insecure and he never gave me a reason to think anything. However, she threw him a surprise party a week before his actual birthday and didn't tell me or invite me. He was confused as to why I wasn't there and she told him that I didn't like his friends and refused to attend. He called me while he was there to drunkenly express how sad he was about my behavior. I could hear his best friend in the background cackling and yelling at him not to give me any more attention and that I'm a horrible girlfriend. The next day I tried calling him but it went straight to voicemail. All the texts went to green and I was sure he blocked me. I talked to his sister who was coincidentally also not invited to the party because his best friend doesn't like her and she explained everything to my boyfriend from my point of view. However, his best friend swore that she invited us and it must have been some kind of accident. After that day, he started acting really distant towards me. I asked him if anything happened between him and his best friend and he said no. He said he loved me and understood that it was an accident. 2 weeks later, he was still distant and he sits me down to say it's over after 2 years. I calmly asked him if it was because of his best friend, to which he replied yes. Of my boyfriend leaving me for his girl best friend. When my boyfriend told me that he was ending things after 2 years, I asked him if it was because of his girl best friend and he said yes. He promised nothing physical happened between them while we were dating, but he had developed feelings for her. He said it just happened. I said that they've been friends for 10 years, so why didn't they date before? He replied that he never thought of her romantically until a few weeks ago. Afterwards, she made it very public that I'm a loser and she won. She also says she was thankful that their friend group won't have to deal with my toxic behavior anymore. I didn't care about this because her actions just showed how low she was. I actually bumped into a few of his friends at the bar a couple weeks after the breakup. They mentioned how they and several other friends were bummed that we broke up because they thought I was sweet and loved having me around. I could tell that they were being genuine. 3 weeks after our breakup, I received a text from a random number. It was my ex. He said he missed me and ended things with his best friend. He asked if we could talk over coffee and hopefully reconcile. He said, I didn't realize how much I'd missed you and now know you're the one for me. I'm so sorry for everything that's happened in this last month. You deserve better and I'm hoping that we can meet up and move past it. I'm fuming he's asking to get back together after screwing his bestie and getting clarity that she's not the one he wants.